How you doing, Len?
Good. How are you guys?
Not too bad. Hanging in there.
All right, you guys are live.
Len, what are you
Katie?
doing?
What's that?
I couldn't get to the
You're
camera
showing
quick
us the wrong end, Len.
Oh, did I? Sorry. Trying to get comfortable.
I think
Katie?
Gary's going to be joining us.
I haven't heard otherwise, but Katie, are you there? No.
Well, Judy's here. How you doing, Judy? Yeah, I talked to Gary about an hour ago, and he said he was going to join us. So. We'll give him one more minute, and then we'll start without him and let him catch up. Is this Gary calling in?
City Hall number. I'm going to hazard a guess that that's personnel, I believe.
Okay, so let's go ahead and get started. We'll do a roll. Councilmember Mark Davies.
Here.
Councilmember Len Carson.
Here.
And Councilmember Mark Drenick.
Here.
And Councilmember Risberger, I'm here. So did everybody get a chance to read through the minutes from February 24th, April 27th, and May 26th? Any questions at all? Any concerns? Okay. I sent out, and I forget how many times I sent this out. It was the results from the infrastructure committee of the Survive and Thrive subcommittee with the liabilities, the responses from both the city staff and also the responses from the local merchant groups. Len, yeah.
Dave, did you want to get a motion to accept the minutes as presented? I didn't know.
Well, technically, we don't need a motion to accept the minutes. Usually, if there's any corrections or anything, we can talk about it. But in the past, we've never really done a motion for that. Dave Merzig says it's really not necessary. I mean, if everybody wants to anyway to feel better, I'm okay with that.
No, that's fine.
Okay. Did everybody get those the files that I sent out, and were you able to check them out, read through them at all?
Yeah, Dave, I've got a question.
Sure.
Who is Oneonta now? Is that Otsego now?
Did I write Oneonta now?
Yeah, so you meant Otsego now?
I meant Otsego now.
Okay, great. I would just wonder if there's one more group.
I'm going to change that. Thanks, Mark. I'll change that later when I pull it up. Yeah, nobody corrected me before either. So on that one. So first of all, I want to thank all the city staff here that answered the questions for me. I think the way they presented everything and put everything together, it was changed a little bit, but I like what was done with a strategic priority, high, medium, and low priority. I actually have quite a few questions. I went through the high and the medium priority because they're high and medium priority. And I've got some follow-up questions that I have on those. But if we want to look at the ones from the merchant groups, hold on just a second. Okay. Destination Oneonta didn't seem to have anything to add to that. They didn't feel like it was really in their wheelhouse. Otsego Now had some other follow-up questions, and I don't know at this point how much they're going to help with these priorities. Mark Drenick, do you have anything to add with this? You're muted.
Sorry, I had too many screens open. No, I don't believe that you're going to see more from them. I'd like to think that when we are able to get the entire merchants group together downtown, that they're going to have some input to this. We haven't been able to do that. We've had so many other things going on, but I would suspect probably within the next couple of weeks we'll be able to bring those folks to this and probably generate a little bit of opinion.
Okay. I mean, it looks like there's things that they're churning along, which is good.
Yes.
But I don't know that they were going to be able to directly affect the liabilities we listed. Now, Barbara Ann Hegan, I thought there were some interesting things that she mentioned. I was curious how you guys thought about this. Marketing senior programs. Has the marketing campaign included that in their marketing? Because that wasn't something that we necessarily talked about with the infrastructure committee, but I think she's correct that that's something that should be part of the marketing campaign.
Yeah, I'm not certain that it's made its way into the marketing campaign the last I looked at it, but I know that there was discussion about that in these last weeks of correspondence. So I suspect that it will, because it certainly does make sense.
Okay. And the other items that she talked about were the dog park, which I was hoping to get an update on where we are with the dog park. Other things like splash pads, which is something we talked about in the past. Bike lanes. I was wondering if we can get an update on that, and then business improvement districts. But I don't know how much we want to go into that today necessarily. But Greg, do you have anything you could catch us up to speed with as far as the dog park and the bike lanes? Because I know we were looking to put in the bike lane on Main Street, and we've had some bike routes, some areas that were designated as bike routes, correct?
Yeah, so there's a bike route map for Oneonta. The bike lanes on Main Street, that'll happen this year. It's just a matter of when. I haven't had a chance to get the pavement markings contractor on the schedule. We've had some back and forth, but haven't connected on a
final. Yeah, everything kind of froze
up. It got pushed back. It would have been done now, honestly.
Yeah.
More time today, I guess, but it's on my list to do, and it's one of the top things now. As for the dog park, that was a project that was included in the budget, but to come out of a reserve fund, the Parks and Recreation Reserve Fund, I believe. And that was something that I was going to lean on the council or this committee's, the council's recommendations, or whether they want to still do that. We didn't specifically call that out to be cut from the budget, but we also didn't discuss it. So what I intended to do was get an updated quote from the fence contractor and bring that here or to the finance committee and ask if at that time, knowing the price, we wanted to go forward with the project. I haven't received that quote yet, which is why I haven't brought it up. And the same goes for the athletic court resurfacing. That's the tennis courts in Wilbur and in Niwa. The Niwa tennis courts are to be converted to pickleball courts. Wilbur tennis courts will remain tennis courts, except for one of them will be switched to a basketball court. And I'm still waiting on the answer for that. I expected to receive that this past weekend, but I didn't yet. So I'll still have to come back with that.
Okay.
In my opinion, I think, there's been some discussion about the dog park over the last year about how's the maintenance going to work? Is there any sort of a group that's going to kind of oversee it as far as the users? And I think Lou Lansing had discussed that a bit at the last Parks and Rec meeting. And I think the Parks and Rec Commission, one or two of their members was going to look into maybe getting some volunteers organized and see what they might be able to do. But I think we need to define what it is we would expect from that kind of a group. I know, for instance, in Norwich, you had a volunteer who raised all the funding for a dog park. Is that something that could possibly happen here and save the city a little money? More importantly, for the longevity of the dog park and the maintenance, is there a group or some people that are users of the dog park that could provide some leadership to the community that use it to make sure that, if there is a problem with maintenance, if someone's not really pulling their weight, maybe communicate that and sort of be a self-policing type of situation, because there's not, there's no enforcement that the city can really do,
Right.
With respect to the rules of the dog park. And I don't want to put our DPW parks crew in a situation where they have to go around and clean up after people who haven't done so themselves. I just think that's something that volunteers or the users can kind of do on their own.
Not that I want to get into an in-depth dog park discussion today, even though I know I brought this up. I think what we should probably do is have most of this conversation once we get an updated quote from the fence company, and then we can have a real discussion about this at council. But I am curious, though, the one thing I wanted to ask you is what happens in like the Maple Street Park. Up here we call it Circle Park. There's the bags that are up here for your dog to use, or for you to pick up after your dog. But what happens normally in a situation with a park like that where we provide the bags? We're just relying on groups of people to self-police, correct? We don't.
Yeah, I mean,
we don't have staff coming in and cleaning up after dogs in the park.
No, but it's also not advertised as a dog park.
Right.
I would imagine there'd be a higher number of dogs at an actual dog park.
Probably.
It might be a problem. It might not.
Okay. Well, we can talk more. Well, does anybody else have any questions for Greg on any of this topic here?
I do, Dave. I just kind of moving forward, I'd like to see us move towards having an association or some kind of exclusive group if we're going to try and move forward with this dog park, so that those are the individuals, as Greg was saying, are responsible for policing. I really don't want to be asking our city staff to be cleaning up the remnants of irresponsible dog owners. And so if we're going to move forward with this, possibly, I would like to see some kind of a plan laid out that says, hey, we're going to have an association, maybe give them a chip fob or whatever, however you're going to come up with, make an entry into this thing, so that those that pay into it, that's how the long-term costs are going to be met. So,
okay.
Just
Mark Drenick, you looked like you had something to say.
Yeah, no, not on the subject of dog park though. But before we do wind up leaving this list, I'd like to connect about the internet. I know that can we move to that for a discussion piece? Dave?
Well, I was going to go over the other part of the Survive and Thrive Task Force, which actually one of the items is the internet. But you're talking about the city. You're talking about the city website, right?
No, I'm not. I'm talking about as we've looked at our liabilities.
Yeah, that's the next group. So yeah, we can. Yeah, if you want to move on to that, I guess what I'm trying to do is just do a quick review of this, and then we need to decide what do we want to do with this right now. Do we need to? Is there something we need to do? Is this something that we think that the city staff has a good handle on it and they don't need us yet? So we can come out of that after the discussion and decide where we want to go with it. But yeah, we can go forward if you want to talk about the.
If you don't mind, just because it's a question that I've not been able to answer for people, and I think one of the things and it's one of the infrastructure liabilities clearly for marketing for telecommuters, and we've all come to experience how iffy our internet connections can be. And I know that our as I'm looking at this, quick, notation in terms of, what the next step is, as staff is going to, essentially, I don't have it right in front of me.
It says staff research options and report back to the planning committee, which.
Right. So I think moving this piece along for me is I think it's a priority. I think for marketing to be successful, it should be a priority for us.
Well,
And
it's listed as a high priority from the staff,
sure.
so-
Yeah, I see that.
Yeah.
Yes. So what I haven't been able to answer for anybody is, what that next step might be outside of doing some research, as it says, will be done here. So I guess basically I'm just looking for information.
Yeah, my question here I wrote here is, I'm assuming this was put together by Greg and Judy. Am I correct?
And Stephen Yearly.
And Stephen. Okay. I guess I was wondering what you meant, like what possible options could there be out there? And if we know what the options are, do we have a time frame where we could make a difference?
I don't know all of the options now. That's basically what the research is intended to be, is figuring out, I want to communicate with Verizon and with Spectrum, see what their plans are. What are their infrastructure expansion plans? Do they have plans to extend fiber to the city of Oniana? There's fiber running through the city of Oniana, but I don't believe any homeowner can hook up to Verizon Fios, for instance. Is that something they plan to expand to provide? Or is there another option? I don't know what that might be.
Okay. All right. Do we have a time frame? I know you guys are very busy, but is there a time frame of when you expect to get or expect to be able to reach out to Verizon?
I don't have a time frame now. I mean, it's again, I guess as they're listed, high, medium, low, it's on my radar. I think, as we indicated in the email, if either this committee or the relevant Strive and Thrive committee wanted to further break these down, if you wanted to take the high priorities and prioritize them, then maybe we could come back and direct us to come back with like some sort of a time frame. We could work on that, maybe bring that back to the next meeting, and as well as maybe make progress on things. But
yeah, Greg,
Okay.
I think that's reasonable. I think that marketing certainly should be able to identify a couple of these as the high priorities. And I think clearly internet is one of our priorities if we're going to attract or try to attract telecommuters. So, but I'll talk to the marketing committee and see what they can do about maybe arranging these in their own descending order of priorities.
Well, Mark, I'd also add that there's 7 high priorities
Right.
listed here. And I think if we go through them, I think it'll be relatively easy to put in place what's easier to reach and what's much harder to reach. Some of these are all council and not so much input from the staff too. So I think if they go through it, it'll be easy to really tease out what we could ask Greg and Judy and Stephen to look closer at. So,
and of course, some of them are just ongoing. They're really always happening as needed.
yeah.
It's a limited infrastructure for biking and walking. I don't think that needs to be further broken down as a priority. That's just going to be something we look at, unless you have a particular project that you would like to be, considered in the capital plan. But
I've got some other questions here, but I want to open it up to you guys first. Does anybody else have any questions on these? Mark Davies?
Yeah, I wanted to ask about the economic developer, recognizing that that's important, but I guess I had questions like, is there evidence that economic developer has been effective in other communities? What would be the role of the economic developer? And then kind of doubling back to Barbara Ann's statements, would a business improvement district perhaps get at some of the same types of things that a economic developer could as well? So I guess I'd like to understand a bit more. I'd like to understand the economic developer role more, and understand, clearly right now we're dealing with some tightening purse strings. Do we really want to do an economic developer? Are there other strategies that could be able to result in the same success? So those are the kind of questions I'd have.
Yeah, I had the same ones. And that really, I was looking for a definition of an economic developer. Judy, can you help us out with some of this? What's the role of an economic developer?
Well, we would see that role as working closely with the current businesses, maybe keeping a log of current businesses, marketing to all types of businesses to attract them here, making connections that, like right now, as a community developer, my focus is really on the grant side of things, and you know, trying to address needs as they come up with our current businesses and residents. An economic developer would have a further reach than that. They'd be like, you know, trying to attract retail here. Greg, and step into on ideas that you've had. They would be able to help with our marketing plan and do the reach out to the high density areas, which is not something that I'm currently working on or have in my wheelhouse. A bid would definitely help, because that would put a lot of the meeting the needs on the local businesses. They would have more control over what they want to see to help them. And they would also be able to fund some things and finance some of the things on their own of improving their lot downtown. And Greg, step in if you have other ideas too.
I mean, I think just the general, you know, the reason we put that in there is we don't really have an economic development arm of the city. That's not something the city really does. It's a little different than what Judy's does. And a lot of the things in the strategic plan and a lot of things that we're looking to do kind of hinge on economic development. And I'm not sure if there's another way that we can go about doing that. Maybe it doesn't have to be a city employee, a city economic developer. Maybe it's a contractor. Maybe it is the bid performing that function, and maybe there's a better way to do that. We certainly aren't saying that an economic developer is absolutely necessary. It's the only thing that'll solve this issue. It's just there are some issues there that we're trying to address that I don't think we have the capacity to address as it stands in the city.
Well, this is something that we were talking about 7-8 years ago, about having why we don't have somebody like this that can. Back then we were talking about a business recruiter, which sounds very similar to this. Do we have any idea? I mean, I don't even have any idea what somebody like this would cost, whether it's a contract employee or somebody that we hire. Do we know anything about that?
No, I think it really warrants further discussion, and maybe there's this committee or another committee that can look at that. And maybe it's not a role for the city. Maybe economic development is, you know, the IDA does some of that. Maybe, I don't know the answer. Yeah. I think it's something we should probably discuss and figure out exactly what we hope to accomplish and things that the city staff can't accomplish now. How are we going to accomplish those?
Yeah, I'm curious what other cities do also.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, Greg, and thanks. I appreciate that sentiment of great idea. Now, how do we best get at it in an effective way? I think that's exactly what we'd be trying to do. Thanks.
And Dave, I would like to see this subject matter brought up maybe at the next planning meeting. I didn't realize that we were going to hone in on economic developer, because I too noticed that in the 21 liabilities that was mentioned several times, and I'm not prepared today. I've got some thoughts on it. I've had some discussions on maybe even somebody locally that would want to take that on. But I'm curious to get a little bit more historical perspective from you, where you guys were talking about a business recruiter, I think is what you said. So if this was a discussion that happened 7-8 years ago, I'm curious of what you guys had come up with then, or was it just something?
Just to be clear, Len, that wasn't. I guess it wasn't a long, serious discussion. It was more of a ad hoc conversation in the middle of a meeting about why we didn't have it, and then we were told that you really couldn't have it, or there isn't anybody around that does that right. Sort of thing. So people just kind of drifted away from that conversation. But yeah, I think we should absolutely put it on the agenda for next time and discuss it. Maybe
because
I'll
we
do
do
some-
need to generate more revenue.
Yeah,
And we do need to generate more revenue. I'm concerned about moving into the next budget, the 2021 budget season. Looking at that right now, Otsego County, 55% of its budget is relied on tourism, which we won't see a new dollar for almost a year of new dollar for tourism. And that's tough. We're headed in a tough road. So if we could get somebody that was, lasered on the city of Oneonta and what development we could do here, that'd be great.
I agree. I'm going to do some looking around to see who else in New York State uses one, and see what other similar sized cities use one. And we'll talk about it more next time. Does anybody else have any questions on the liability list that the staff gave us? Then I've got a couple questions on the excessive surface parking downtown. Looking at the answer that was here, what is a parking benefit district?
Parking benefit district is something that would go along with paid parking. For instance, if you had paid parking meters downtown in any particular area, you could establish a parking benefits district where the revenue from those meters would be spent in that parking benefits district geographic area for certain things that could be defined. Improvements. Essentially, the idea is the money that customers are paying because they're shopping or doing business downtown, that's going to go to benefit the downtown area.
Right.
Not be used to fix a pothole on Chestnut Street somewhere off away from downtown or the parking benefits district. It could go
We didn't
toward-
establish that before when we had parking, did we, Greg?
No, that's never, as far as I know, been a thing.
Yeah, I don't think so either.
It's a concept that's been implemented other places that it seems to work well. It's a way to ensure the public and the business, especially who might be concerned about, is paid parking going to negatively affect my business? I think typically it's been shown, plenty of studies on this, that it's a benefit. But if you can show that the revenue is going to directly benefit those businesses by improving the streetscape or providing some amenity beyond what the city can already provide with its normal revenue, then that would be something to make it worthwhile.
Okay. Parking minimums. What you said here, staff has drafted MU1 zoning code revision and is waiting for the planning commission to review to remove parking minimums to allow market-driven parking levels. Can you explain that in a 2 or 3
Yes.
sentences?
Sure. So, with a developer, they come in and our code specifies X number of parking spaces per unit or, and that's not necessarily the best thing for downtown. I mean, look at our downtown now, look at an aerial photograph, and we have a lot of asphalt, and a lot of it in the aerial photo is not going to have a car on it. A parking study shows with the numbers. We built a lot of parking and it's not all being utilized. So is our downtown space being best utilized? So if a developer comes in and says, we don't need to use that many parking spaces based on our market analysis, this is what's best for our business, but we're required to by the city zoning code, then that's requiring them to spend more money on parking that maybe they don't need to. And maybe that parking can be managed in different ways, such as with a parking benefits district.
Would this also include the parking minimums with rental properties in the neighborhoods?
Not necessarily. I know right now Steven's working on the MU1 zoning code. That would be a different revision that would be considered.
Oh, MU1, sorry. Yeah, I was putting 2 different codes together here, zoning codes. So my fault on that. Now, it also said create a staff-led task force to review citywide parking policies. So I'm assuming Gary would lead that if and when that's going to happen.
I know,
Gary, are you here with us?
Can you hear me?
Yep.
Okay. Sorry, what was the question? I was having some trouble with my internet.
Yeah, you and everybody else today. There were a couple of items in the liability list that talked about various staff-led task forces being put together. So I'm assuming that's something that you'll be doing at some point. One of them is to discuss citywide parking policies and
Yeah,
considering
well,
implementing-
Yeah, we had agreed when we were working on the lofts project, several issues came up regarding parking, of course.
Right.
One of them was, which is a real concern, is with our current policy about parking during a snow emergency. And we were taking a look at creating a new policy for snow emergency because the current policy doesn't make much sense. Every time there's 2.5 inches of snow, every single person in the city has to move their car off the street.
Right.
So at the same time, we were going to take a look at parking regulations overall, whether it's in our parking lots, garage, or on the street, and do a revision. So I believe Greg had started working on that with Stephen, did a little preliminary work on it, but it's something that we need to get back to.
Okay.
Yeah, we place that as a high priority. We want to say a staff committee, like, you know, obviously the police department needs to be involved in that, the finance department, if we're going to consider, you know, the implications of potential paid parking and the DPW with respect to the snow plowing and all that. We need to get our heads together to come up with what could work, and then I would imagine come back to this committee.
Okay. All right. Does anybody else have any questions? Anything you wanted to discuss about the priority list? Either one?
Well, Dave, this isn't a one and done, right? I mean, we're going to bring this up until we kind of start really chipping away at it, right?
Yeah, I want to. I didn't review the low priority. I mean, if we want to, we can, but I didn't really go into it. I didn't review it myself. I figured the medium and the high priorities were most important. But just looking generally, we're talking about the airport, the aging housing stock, lack of diversity, automobile dependency. I think some of these are already being addressed. I think our airport commission is doing a fantastic job. And I know that Judy and Stephen have done a lot of work on our answers for dealing with our aging housing stock too. But yeah, we can bring this up every week or every month if we want to. I don't want this to get shelved because it's a priority list. So, okay, if we don't have anything else on that, I want to go back to the OPD Community Advisory Board. Gary and the chief can lead the discussion on that.
Yeah, I'll start and then the chief can pick up from there. The mission of this advisory board would be to work in conjunction with the chief and any other members of the department that he designates to review all of our policies. You know, all of our policies were recently reviewed and approved by the state accreditation folks, but the state accreditation folks are all police people. And so it's, we've never had our policies reviewed by the people of the city. So this is an opportunity for the people of the city to go through the policies, and their role would be to make recommendations to the city for any possible changes to those policies. I see this as a short-term, a relatively short-term. I say short-term because it'd be an ad hoc committee, and once they finish their mission, they disband. It's not an ongoing forever committee. They would go through all of the policies, procedures, review them, make their recommendations, and then would be done. As all of our committees are, it would be appointed recommendation by the mayor and approval by the council. Here is my current thinking on the makeup of the policy. It would include the chief, of course. I believe it should include our HR director, a representative from the Oneonta chapter of the NAACP, a representative from our Commission on Community Relations and Human Rights, a SUNY student, a Hardwick student, a Hardwick staff person, a SUNY staff person, a council member, and a citizen at large. I would also want to stipulate that a minimum of 50% of the committee consists of people of color. I would not be a member of the committee, but I would act to facilitate the meetings just to keep them focused and on track along with the chief. The chief had some other ideas on it. I know he had sent me an email with his ideas. I'll let him speak to those. Chief?
Unmute there. Wasn't letting me unmute there for a minute. Thank you, Mayor. Yeah, we have, the mayor and I did speak on this email, of course, back and forth, and we had some ideas that I think we could work together on. One of the main things I think is important that everybody involved, that we have kind of a roundtable discussion so that we can talk openly and freely to try and get things moving forward and to explain exactly where the policies have come from, where some of them go to, and where they can go to in the future, and how it can benefit everybody. We have many policies. We have many policies that may not necessarily, I can't say they're not worthy of review, but they're just not that exciting. But we can certainly limit the scope as needed with other, as we move forward. A lot of the policies we have are in need of changing just because of what the state legislature has done within the last month. That's easy. That's a low-hanging fruit. That's easy. But we can get into them a little bit deeper with some of the other policies that we have and procedures that we can dig into and really kind of work together on. And with this comes some other things as well. As technology is always changing and always moving forward, we can look at how that can be incorporated into some of the policies to serve everybody as well. It's really kind of, for me, I'm excited about it. I think it's going to be a good exercise in just being transparent and just working forward and moving forward. And I really think we're in a very good position in the department, especially with accreditation, that most of our stuff's pretty up to date anyways, but it can always be looked at and it can always be improved. Thank you.
Well, I'm excited to see what comes out of this committee. I think it'd be a good makeup of people. So does anybody have any questions for Gary or the chief? Mark, you had your hand up first.
Not so much a question, but a thanks, Chief. Mayor, I appreciate you doing this. This was certainly a concern that I heard from some folks within the city, as well as obviously the climate of what's been going on around the country. So I think this is a great move. I think this just strengthens our police department. So thanks for kind of actively and willingly and excitedly taking this on.
Yeah, I just wanted to say thank you also. And I was trying to write down all the different groups that Gary was mentioning, and I couldn't write fast enough. I don't have stenography. So these are all going to be city residents, Gary, that you're selecting?
That's correct. Obviously, college students will be, I had 2 college students on the list. They will be city residents while they're at college.
Okay.
Gary, is the council member going to be, oh wait, never mind. I answered my own question. So any other questions for the chief or Gary on that topic? Okay. Moving forward to the city website update. The last time we had this discussion, we decided that a second local company would be solicited for a second quote. Did we do that? Has that come back?
So this is on me.
Yeah.
I haven't connected with, frankly, whomever I was supposed to on this. I'm supposed to work with someone in the city, and I don't recall if it might have been Ginny or Katie or whom.
No, Mark, you're off the hook. It's been taken care of. It was agreed at the last meeting that we would ask a quote or proposal from DTI,
Yes.
and that happened.
Oh, good.
I believe their proposal may have come in today, hasn't been looked at yet, and so there will be a staff team initially take a look at it, and then review it. You know, Kerry, who is our expert on this, along with the others who will be using it most, and they will report back at the next planning commission, provide copies of both proposals to the committee, and provide their review and recommendations.
Sounds good.
It does. Thank you, Mayor.
Any questions? Okay. Last one is SLA application. Gary?
Oh, yes. I wanted to, I'll let Mark talk about that. Why don't you talk about it, Mark? You know about it more than I do. I saw that it came in today. I did have a couple of questions about it. Let me just say before Mark, I'll talk about the process. So this is about street closings, and Mark will give you the details. So there could outside dining, as well as some retailers setting up some outside sales as well on the sidewalk. We have to send in an application to the state liquor authority for approval only if the restaurants are going to serve alcohol. Our code allows for beer and wine only to be served by restaurants. It does not allow for bars to serve alcohol outdoors. So under our current code, unless the council considers changing it, it would be those restaurants only who currently have a liquor license could serve beer and wine only outdoors. I just received it. Mark has done, and I have to commend him. He's done an outstanding job on this. It's very impressive. And I will be sending it on. Just came in this afternoon. I want to send it to our public safety folks, Public Works, to review it probably within the next 24 hours, get their response so we can move forward, get their responses, if any of their recommendations for changes, back to Mark. And then from there, it gets submitted to the State Liquor Authority and hopefully for approval. With that, I'll let Mark give more information about it.
Again, thank you, Mayor. The State Liquor Authority, at least the individual that I spoke with, is going to have typically about a 2-day turnaround on approvals as they are looking at them now. We are about in the middle of the pack in terms of cities that are requesting that waiver essentially for individuals rather and have a collective application approval. They are really, the State Liquor Authority, frankly, is not as interested in much of the work that we've put into this, but that work needed to be done. So they'll be provided with most everything. If they have any questions, they promised to get right back to us and we'll make whatever modifications. It's typically going to be around making certain that those who are serving alcohol have current licenses, and I've connected with most everybody. I've got a couple of people that I need to visit with tomorrow to just flesh that out fully. But that they are also going to be employing all of the various standards that New York State has mandated for their connection to to their clientele, including obviously the use of PPE, the sanitizing, et cetera, et cetera. What we've done in this plan, though, is put together something that goes beyond the needs of the SLA, because frankly, the needs that Oneonta have are greater and warrant the amount of detail that's been put into this. And so what we've done is, in a nutshell, and you'll all apparently, the mayor is going to share with you the plan, so I'm not going to go through the plan with you at all, except to say that our intention in the long run is to address there's three things that really warrant our addressing it, and it's an opportunity that we have. One is to begin to change the mindset on Main Street relative to appropriate use of masks and a widespread and prevalent use of masks, to address the issue of social distancing, to make certain that all of our merchants and restaurants are fully engaged in all of the safety measures they need to be. And as we do that, we wind up hopefully changing the dynamic of Main Street so that we the standards of how we operate, not only on the Saturdays that we'll be doing this, but throughout the week, so that when the students start to make their way into town, we're mentoring, we're walking the walk, and it's going to be a whole lot easier to hold everyone to a level of accountability that's going to keep us all safe. If we are not doing that now, it's going to be harder to do that in 8 weeks or so when the students come back. Certainly, we know the Hartwick students will be back, and I know from dealing with student landlords that there's a percentage, no matter what Oneonta State does, of SUCO students that come back as well. So we need to be able to start to model, and this is going to give us that opportunity, because we are going to make paramount, out of all the things that we are trying to address, the issue of safety is going to be the priority. Every single thing we do. So to that end, we have, and you'll see a diagram, I'm sure the mayor will share the package with you. You'll see a diagram that shows the various, the thoughts that have gone into social distancing for pedestrians, relative to retail, and also relative to dining. That dining will take place in the street, in the empty parking spots, and also on sidewalks. So the pedestrian traffic, for the most part, will be in the street, but there will be pedestrian traffic that's been accounted for that will come to the various doors of businesses and of restaurants, because people are going to want to go into retail and restaurants. So that's one piece of it, the social distancing and safety piece of it. And it's a big piece. The second and third priorities are kind of equal in my mind's eye. Retail and restaurants both need to expand their footprint, and that's what we're trying to do here. We need to expand their footprint so that open air dining is something that maybe makes a difference to the bottom lines of restaurants that are struggling right now. And the same of retail. In the case of retail, a lot of our stores are small. They don't have proper ventilation. A lot of them don't even have windows. They are required to keep the numbers of shoppers at about 50% of what they would typically have, which for many of them is kind of a joke because they don't have that many shoppers to begin with. But a lot of our shops cram a lot into a small space. And so our best way of accommodating them and allowing them to have a good Saturday is to bring them out into the street as well. So what we're going to have is the retailers pulled out into the street, the sidewalk, and into the parking spaces. The restaurants pulled out into the sidewalk and parking spaces. We're also working with the City of the Hills Arts Festival folks, and they are going to put, I think it'll be 16 at this point, 10 by 10 rather, pop-ups in the parking spaces. So we'll have that going on as well. So it'll be a very vibrant, very shopping and dining oriented Saturday, which is what we want. However, entertainment is going to be a part of that. But at this point, that entertainment is going to be awfully subtle. There can't be vocalists. There can't be woodwinds or brass. There can't be anything that expels, air and germs. Hopefully, we'll make some progress over the course of weeks, and we'll be able to do things that are bigger and better around the entertainment. But there'll be enough. We're working with the farmers market to ensure that they are able to bring their trucks around and offload and get themselves set up before the street actually closes. The street will be closed, but before it opens up to the public as a closed venue. So they'll be able to set up, and then we have volunteers and staff that will work to assist those folks from the farmers market to make their way back through the walkway to the upper level of the parking garage. Maybe most concerning, and going back to the first point, was we have 8 potential entrances into Main Street as we close from Chestnut to Elm. That includes the alley, that includes the Westcott lot, and of course the city streets. And so we are putting 8 what we're calling welcome stations at those points that are manned by 2 staff. We're going to work with the CDO workforce to see if we can get through their youth experience program. This is already paid for, to get some youth employed, and they'll be a part of this along with staff and volunteers. And those folks will greet. They'll inform those who are coming into Main Street about what our expectations of the day are in terms of social distancing and masks and so forth and so on. They'll also have sanitizing stations there. If somebody doesn't have a mask, they'll have masks. They're going to be, very friendly and very appropriate, but they're going to be relentless about the messaging, so that hopefully we wind up with people who are, are participating as we want them to in our streets. So all of this is part and parcel of that proposal the mayor will send, and you'll hopefully have an opportunity to look at and provide your feedback. But I can take questions if you want.
Mark, first of all, I just want to thank you and your group for all the work you've done. It's tremendous. I have a couple questions. Number one is, when are we looking to start this, and on what days did your group finally decide that you want to do this? And also, what's the plan? And the only reason I'm asking this is because I hear stories of incidents that have happened in the last few weeks. What's the plan if we have a group that comes into one of the welcome areas to come down to Main Street and they refuse to wear a mask or to follow the rules?
All right, so let me take those one at a time. It's July 18th will be the first. We're hoping to do 10 of these as Saturdays. Our hope is that it's complicated. It's a very complicated enterprise. So our hope is to get 2 of them under our belts and be able to determine what worked, what didn't work, make whatever adjustments. Hopefully they're micro adjustments, and then look at allowing the dining portion of it, not the retail portion, but the dining portion of it, to take over Friday evenings and potentially Thursday evenings if the Friday evenings work out well. So the street closure would be for about 4 hours on a Friday night. Similarly on Thursday, if we go that route. The idea being, again, the more stories that one sees on the news about dining in, the more concerned folks should be about indoor dining. And so having open air dining is going to be a godsend to these businesses, but we have to make sure that it works. The question about, so that answers maybe the question about the Thursdays, Fridays. It'll be a couple of weeks for us to really kind of work out all of the bugs and determine what our strategy is going to be. Chief, you're still on this call someplace? Yes. So we, what did they do honestly at Home Depot or Lowe's or Walmart when somebody walks in and doesn't wear a mask. I am in these places often enough, and I'll turn to my wife and say, how in the world is this person in here without a mask? There's only so much you can do. Chief, you know, I know there is actually more that we can do in terms of, you know, fines. But
Well,
you know, what do we want to really do around that? So go ahead, Chief.
I was going to say it's a little different situation than at Home Depot or Lowe's. Those are private businesses.
Right.
So it's kind of like a restaurant: no shoes, no shirt, no service, and they can establish that as their policy. The problem we run into in the city of Oneonta is that it's public property, and if they're outside and they're social distancing, it becomes a sticky situation whether we can ask them to leave or not. What we certainly can do is go and talk to them and approach to them. And if they start to cause a problem, cause a ruckus, well, that's a different situation that we can address. I really think that, you know, citizens of Oneonta are really pretty good. I think, you know, if we ask them and talk to them nicely and politely and explain the situations, I don't see a lot of problems with it. I really don't. And especially if we explain what it is, and then we can probably ease them if they absolutely positively refuse, ease them towards the exit.
Mm-hmm. I think that's right, Chief. You know, I think, you know, we actually maybe do have some muscle in terms of what we can do in terms of fines and so forth and so on. I believe I've read that, but I don't know that it does us any good. I think it's more important that we have a ubiquitous messaging. And in fact, to one end of that, we've already begun to work with Ian Austin and the Oneonta Teen Center for them to create posters that are promoting the idea of masks on, you know, downtown and more. And then we're going to do some, reproduction of the best of those. We're going to get these things all over the place. Where the idea is that wherever they look, wherever they turn, that the expectation is clear. And that if everybody's modeling that kind of appropriate behavior, there are, I think the word is knuckleheads in this world. But hopefully they'll find themselves either, masking up or leaving, and, the day will continue on. We will have people gently reminding.
Yeah, one of the things the mayor and I spoke about was setting a good example. Right. And I think that's really important from the volunteers and my officers, if we're down there, is to set the example and take the lead on it. And I, honestly, you go in places, you see everyone else wearing a mask, so you put one on. It's just kind of how it works.
The vendors that come in and also all of our merchants and restaurants are going to be held to an account for how they are interacting with everyone. So they will all be wearing masks, even these vendors that are coming in from the City of the Hills Festival, and they'll be with us throughout. They will all wear masks. They will all wear gloves when they're working with customers. When they take a credit card, they will wipe them down. They're all going to need to sign essentially a contract that says that this is what they're going to do, and we're going to hold them to that level of account.
Mark, two things I wanted to just bring up here. One is just to give you some quick feedback and looking at the diagram. I did run this concept today past the control room group that I talk to every day. Primary reason is I don't want to get my head chopped off when they see it on television.
Sure.
And so one is that I believe that the state liquor authority regulations require that any of the restaurants that are serving alcohol have their tables cordoned off.
Yes, they will be.
So the diagram doesn't show that, or doesn't say that in the application. You may want to make that clear.
Good point.
The other thing is I'm still a little nervous. We're walking a fine line here with the City of the Hills Art Festival folks. We cannot have a festival.
True.
I mean, we cannot make this the City of the Hills Festival that's going to attract people to an event. So we have to be, it's very hard to know exactly where to draw the line. We can have some outdoor vendors, but last thing we need is this to be on television as a festival, pop-up table, tents all along, attracting people, the sidewalk filled with people, shoppers, becomes the City of the Hills Arts Festival incognito. We can't have that. So we need to make sure we put the brakes on that and not allow it to become that.
Agreed. And I've been hammering that home with anybody that will listen to me, is that the entertainment aspect of this is absolutely subordinate to the shopping and dining.
Right.
And that's the way it needs to stay until such time as the government.
Right. But we don't need to hammer it home and have people listen to you. We just need to limit the number of these pop-up tents. So in other words, 10 may be too many. We just say that there's going to be at this first event, no more than 3 are pop-up tents. Then maybe as things go on, there might be 5, there might be 7, there might be eventually 10. But we need to limit the scale of this in the beginning.
Right. So again, Mayor, the pop-ups would be just artisans. And for the sake of making an argument here, the bringing people down to shop as a mindset. Talking with a couple of our retailers, they just hate when the street closes, because it's terrible for their business. The one day where they actually make money, and this is not what we're trying to replicate, but just in terms of mindset, is the Grand and Glorious Garage Sale, because everybody comes down with a mindset of shopping. So, I feel like we can probably meet halfway on this, Mayor, but I feel like the idea of it being an opportunity to shop as well as to dine, those are the only 2 things that we're offering here, and I don't want to dilute it so much that because we do have, as you look at the diagram, we have a lot of empty stores, and they will not be putting anything out because there's nobody there. So we do have to be careful that we don't have kind of a dead zone.
Okay. What we got to remember is that outdoor dining in the street is permitted by restaurants.
Right.
Events and festivals are not.
Correct.
Now, regardless of what is good for the merchants, I understand that. Events and festivals are not permitted. Outdoor dining is. So we can't let this cross the line at this point into becoming an event.
Sure. I 100% agree. And what I'll do is wait on yours and the rest of the folks who are reviewing this, their input, and we'll make whatever adjustments need to be made.
I'm going to jump in here. It's 6 o'clock already. I know Councilmember Shu has a question. Let's see if she's going to unmute or.
Hey, yeah, I can, just based on Mark's last statement there, I can wait. If we're going to discuss this further, I can wait until I see the plans and just kind of ask my questions then. Thank you.
Okay, thanks. Scott, did you have something you started to write me?
No, I'm computer illiterate. Just disregard that.
Okay.
Sorry.
No problem. All right. Does anybody have anything else they need to bring up tonight?
So are we going to look at this application at some point? Because I lost that in the translation here. I didn't know, are we looking at this?
To the State Liquor Authority? Gary, are we going to be reviewing that before it goes out?
Yes, you will. As a matter of fact, technically, I think the council should approve the application. In the interest of time, I would recommend that it gets sent out to the council, and if there are any objections, they be aired, and if there's no objections, allow it to be sent out. Let me ask you this. I was going to have it reviewed by Public Safety and Public Works for logistical concerns. Do you want me to send it out to you now at the same time, or wait until they put their any comments in? I don't care, either way, whatever you prefer.
I would like to see the Public Safety the two chiefs' concerns. For me, I would
Okay.
like to see what they come up with.
Yeah,
Good.
I'm feeling the same way. I'd like to have them review it first. They're the experts.
Okay. So I'll send it out tonight to public safety chiefs, to public works, and then ask them to turn it around in 24 hours. Then I'll send the whole package with their comments out to the whole council. And then anybody can express any of their concerns before it gets sent out to the SLA.
Sounds good. All right, do we have anything else? Are we all set? Okay. All right, well, thanks, everybody. We kept it to just about an hour. I think we got a lot done. So, all right.